100 kilometers FAI triangle. That's a great paragliding achievement. But how do you fly your first one? Servus and welcome to the Paragliding XC Stories. In this XC Guide video, I want to explain how to fly one of the most famous FAI triangles in the Eastern Alps, the Mölltal triangle, also known as the Kreuzeck triangle, which starts in the paragliding mecca of the Eastern Alps, Greifenburg. Watch this video if you want to know about the turnpoints, the essential spots, and if you want to get some hints about the route. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask them in my Telegram group, you'll find the link in the video description. The beauty of this triangle is that you can adjust it from about 80 to 180 kilometers and even more, so it works for any skill level, and it is indeed suitable as your first 100k FAI triangle. But before we get started, let's talk about the skill level required to fly this triangle. This is certainly not a relaxed flight, it's flying in alpine conditions. So before you take off, make sure that you can fly for at least 5 hours with full concentration. Pack your snacks, have enough water with you, don't party the night before the flight. You can fully control your wing in moderate turbulence. I'd recommend at least one SIV course and some practice flying in turbulent air before attempting this flight. A strong wind landing will not be an overwhelming experience for you. You should be able to plan the approach and execute the landing in gusty winds up to 30 km per hour. You should have previous experience flying in alpine conditions, so this is definitely not your first XC flight in the mountains. We take off at Greifenburg on the southern slopes and follow the Drau Valley west to Lienz. Here we turn if we want to fly 100 kilometers, or we extend the triangle to the northwest or to southwest. We mark our western turn point and fly northeast towards the Mölltal. We fly to the north side of the valley and set our turn point here for 100 kilometers. Or we can fly further north to the main divide of the Alps. We set our northern turn point and follow the Mölltal to the east, eventually crossing back into the Drau Valley. From here we can fly straight back to the takeoff, and a 100 km FAI triangle is complete. For a larger triangle we cross the Weissensee and fly further east. We set our eastern turn point and fly back to the takeoff. While this triangle is relatively easy to fly, there are some challenges that make it even more interesting. You launch quite late in Greifenburg, it's not an early launch. This means you have less time and have to watch your XC speed. There are several tricky spots along the route that will require your full concentration. Some thermals will be quite rough, so it won't be boring in the air. This flight can be very challenging and even dangerous on windy days, as the strong thermals can quickly become violent and the strong valley breeze will become even stronger. Especially avoid meteo winds from the east, because the valley breeze in the Mölltal reaches quite high and an easterly wind will strengthen it even more. You don't need a very high cloud base for launch. The higher the better, but anything above 2200 meters in the launch area is fine. The most important thing to know here is that you must be completely confident with your wing. You can fly this route with almost any wing, starting with a low ENB. Don't forget warm clothes, plenty of water and snacks. Yes, and your camera too. How do we know you made it? Alright, buckle up, we're taking off. First, get some height. If the cloud base is below the peaks, well, get to cloud base. We fly west using the clouds and the lift from the slopes. If the clouds are below the peaks, as you can see now, we will soon have to tackle the first tricky part of the route. There's a power line on this slope that runs right over the area where you'd normally look for lift, so watch out. I decided to skip this area completely, which turns out not to be the best choice. It's quite windy in this area, so I have to make sure I don't sink too low, where the valley breeze completely destroys any thermals. I patiently search and wait for a stronger lift. I lose some time here, but finally catch a nice climb right to the cloud base. Normally you fly over this ridge, but today the cloud base is just too low for that. Still, the view is great, and playing with the clouds is a nice experience. This place is called Anna Schutzhaus. It's an alpine hut where you can eat and even stay the night. It's considered the first really tricky spot of the whole route, so if you get here, congratulations, you're on a good track. From here, the temptation is great to head directly north. If you do so, you will cut off a corner of your triangle, so you may not end up with 100 kilometers. To be sure, keep flying towards this ridge. It really works reliably, so even if the crossing looks far and difficult, don't be afraid. You can get some extra height on the way there if you find some lift. Now look at the clouds. Notice how they bend at the top. Today there is a pretty strong northwest wind, so it's not the easiest day for this route. So the ridge works and you can set your western turn point here. I want to extend the triangle a bit and fly further, passing this town below, which is called Lienz. There's a paragliding takeoff here called Zettersfeld, so you might notice some paragliders taking off on the slope. This place can be windy, so concentrate and find reliable lift. Using the clouds and the slope, I fly a few more kilometers and set my western turn point. Now we fly back to the reliable ridge. You see, I'm wasting some time over Zettersfeld, but it's not really necessary. You can fly straight on. After flying back a bit, I finally get to the ridge. Here I get some height and head northeast. We enter the Mölltal. This slope will provide strong lift, so we can climb quickly and continue along the valley. I fly a bit to the right of the ridge, because the northwesterly wind shifts the thermals a little, as you can see from the clouds. If you are flying lower, it's better to fly directly over the ridge. I sometimes change my turn direction in the thermal when I'm alone, but don't confuse other pilots if you're in a gaggle. There is a very thermally active area ahead of us around this high mountain lake, so you can be sure you'll find lift there. However, conditions can be pretty rough, both up there and on the slopes below, so stay focused. Getting up here is easy, so we continue towards our northern turnpoint. If the north wind is not too strong, you can fly into this valley and extend the triangle north to the main divide. But on this day the wind is quite uncomfortable up here, so we decide not to fly far into the high mountains. Hitting a strong thermal, which is also drifting a lot due to the strong wind, marks our northern turnpoint. From here we follow the Mölltal further east. This part of the route can be challenging because the valley breeze usually reaches up to some of the peaks. Fortunately, the northwesterly meteo wind is now pushing against the valley breeze, so I don't have to struggle to get back. Look at the cloud shadows. Notice how quickly they drift with the wind. If the cloud base is very high, you can climb up to the clouds and cross directly into the Drau Valley from here. I decide to jump to the next peak instead and cross from there. At this point, get as much height as possible and start the long crossing. Here comes the second tricky part of the whole route. As I mentioned before, the Mölltal wind is quite strong and reaches high up, so it creates a massive lee side here and actually hits the slopes on that side. But here you have to fly into the lee side. First of all, the sunny slopes are there, but the most important thing is that this slope here is actually facing the wind, because when it enters the valley, it turns like this. You just have to get through the rough part, which is not a problem if you have enough height like I have now. Okay, arrived at the sunny slopes and got a great thermal. Nice. You can climb as high as you feel comfortable. I'm a bit impatient here and leave the climb earlier. Again, this is not the best decision. The pilots who climbed longer in this thermal catch up with me a few minutes later. The climb is weak here, so I decide to scan the slope. That doesn't help, so I go back to the edge, where I'm lifted up this time. From this summit, after a climb to cloud base, you can glide directly down to the landing field, and congratulations on your 100 km FAI triangle. If you want to extend it a bit, just continue to the Weißensee, the beautiful lake behind this ridge. Enjoy the view and gain some height to cross the lake safely. Our goal is to reach this ridge and follow it to the left. Note a nice cloud street above the ridge. It will make our trip easier. Here you can fly as far east as you feel comfortable, but keep in mind that after a certain point, flying further won't increase your FAI triangle anymore. It depends on how far you extended it to the north. So I fly east just past the point where my 132 km triangle stops growing and turn back. Following this ridge is easy as long as you stay above it, so try not to sink too much. Look how beautiful it is. I love these moments. From here you can glide down to the landing field. get some extra points on X contest, you can first try to get back as close as possible to the launch, and this is what I do. Wow, what a flight! I hope you enjoyed it as I did and found my tips for flying the Mölltal triangle useful. If you have any questions or suggestions, feel free to contact me via my socials. The links are as usual in the video description. Fly safe and see you in the next story!